Hey, what's your self-talk? Jabari is here from What's Your Self-Talk podcast. And listen, I want you to download Anchor right now. Because chances are you're listening to this and you're saying, I got some things I want to share. I have some things that I've wanted to put in a podcast form. Here's the opportunity. Anchor is free. You can do it from your phone and you can be on all the different podcast stations all in one app. Okay. So what I need you to do is stop waiting for the perfect time, analysis paralysis. Do it now. You'll thank me later. What's your self-talk? Hey, what's your self-talk? This is Jabari again with another podcast of What's Your Self-Talk. I'm excited. And if this is your first time here, the job of this podcast is just to simply bring ideas and things to you to challenge you to be able to pull out your potential in your work and business life. And we do that by asking that question of what's your self-talk? And it's up to you to be able to define what are the things you're telling yourself and how can you change your self-talk to start getting the results you want in your life. So on today's podcast, it's going to be the first of a lot of series of my vision board. And one of the reasons why is because I've broken my vision boards out into certain sections. And so today, my vision board that I have up, and this is also going to be a form of accountability for me to make sure that I continue to get these up on the wall so that I can continue to remind myself what is the focus, what are the things that I need to put in my mind. So today is the mental. Now, if you may remember, I have been doing a lot of studying with just subconscious mind. I did social media fasting and figuring out a lot about how our minds work. And I came across a book that had a flow chart that talked about how we can be able to control our own mind. So the book is from Napoleon Hill and it's How to Own Your Mind. And within that book, he had a chart that he would walk through, but he will also tell you to study and to get to the point where you fully understand how each part of the chart flows. And I challenged myself when I was wanting to make a vision board for more of my mental goals that I wanted to accomplish. It was this and started thinking in this way. And as I listened to the book and I heard Napoleon Hill, he went all the way back of interviewing people like Andrew Carnegie. He was just giving examples of how all these people who've obtained lots of different success and how they've used a lot of these principles. And so what I'm going to do is explain to you the best way I can as far as what is on this chart, but then also help you understand why it's so important for us to think about these things, and especially the mental state. Let's face it, today's world we're constantly bombarded by so much information. And one thing I honestly think is that it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. It can be a good thing because if you know what you want, you can go get the information. It can be a bad thing because if you don't know what you want, it's so much out there. It can be overwhelming and then you can get lost, you can get confused, and you can get frustrated and you don't do anything. And so this is a form of helping me to stay focused on what are the things I want and then also seeing how that happens within my own mind. So, and if you want to kind of get a free version of this chart, I can send it to you for free. If you listen to this podcast, you can be able to message me directly on social media. Hey, you can reach out to me directly at 870-530-2950 and say, hey, Jabari, send me that chart and I'll get it sent over to your way, or send me your email and I'll email it over to you. So the beginning of the chart, one thing that Napoleon Hill focus on is talk about our desires. And he says the desire is the starting point of all achievement based on a combination of, then he has an arrow that points to a circle, is the major purpose in life, finishing point. So we have a desire and we drive that to ultimately, what is our major purpose that we want at the end of our life? And then he has on this chart talking about these things can be attained through some combination of the 17 principles of achievement. So these are the things that me and you look for or want to practice in order to accomplish a form of achievement. So he said, number one, definition of purpose. Number two, the mastermind alliances. We'll get into that a little bit more here shortly. Number three, an attractive personality. Number four, applied faith, learning to apply faith in all that you do. Number five, going the extra mile. That is always something we've always heard. Get there early, stay late. Organized endeavor, understanding what you're doing, but also having a structure with what you're doing and not just kind of being off the cuff all the time, which is important for me. Applied golden rule, inspired feelings, self-discipline, which is huge, very critical one for me. Organized thoughts, big one for me as well. Controlled attitude, teamwork, liberty of thought, learning from defeat is big. Creative vision, health maintenance, and budgeting of time and money. Also a big one for me. So when you think about those things, that specifically is attained through some combination of those 17 principles of achievement. So you heard me say a big one because some of those were really big for me. And those are some of the principles that I want to apply for myself. So it was up to me to really be able to grab hold of some of those things and understand that this is me. This is defining me. This is the things that I know if I can accomplish, these are the things that's going to allow me to reach achievement, like budgeting of time and money, or what was it? Organized thought, self-discipline, and continue to harping on those things and seeing how they will come to fruition for me. Now, he also has a box that goes over to the 9 basic motives. The 9 basic motives. So these are the things that motivate us. And these sometimes are not all of them. It just can be a few of them. And as I read them off, you can start to understand. So he says emotion of love, right? I love my wife. I love my kids. I love them so much. And so I want to do great. I want to do good. I want to provide. I want to do best for them. Emotional sex. Explains itself. The desire for health. Desire for self-preservation. Desire for freedom desire for freedom of body of mind. Desire for personal expression and fame. Desire for perspiration of life. Desire for revenge, and emotions of fear based off 7 basic fears, which is fear of poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, loss of liberty, and death. Now, when you think about those things, especially like the emotions of fears, it's certain people are driven by those fears. You think about it, one of the reasons we like to take care of ourselves, and we have a fear of having ill health. So what do we do in return? We make sure we motivate and we strive to be the healthiest version of ourselves we can possibly be. That's all the people you see who probably are big bodybuilders or people who work out on a consistent basis. I work out on a consistent basis. I want to be around for my loved one. I want to be mentally functioning for my loved ones. And one for me has always been a desire for freedom of body and mind. That is so big. When you can be able to accomplish that, I think you get to another level. And I think just like myself, I'm continuing to strive for that and have reached some level, but haven't got to the point that I ultimately want to get to. Okay, so the next chart, he's talking about organized thought. So chart 2 is a little bit taken from chart 1, but this is more around organized thought. Okay. Now he says this chart shows the order in which organized thoughts should be applied in the attainment of any desired purpose. So remember at the beginning, we talked about the desire. This is the starting point of all achievement based on a combination of major purpose. So now we're getting into using that and starting to see what are the steps we need to find when we define that major purpose. Okay, so step one is just that. Define your major purpose. It's up to you to determine what is your purpose that you want for life. Now, a lot of you, just like me, you may have some spiritual influence that may guide that, or you may have always known by knowing your God gifts that you have and just applying that off into whatever endeavor that your gifts can be applied to. So he talks about the definite major purpose can be attained through the factors listed below in the order here shown. Proceeding according to this chart of itself is an effective form of organized thought. Don't forget that your purpose should be founded on definite motives or some combination of the 9 basic motives. Now, remember, we talked about that: emotional love, emotional sex, desire for health. So you can kind of see how this chart, looking at, you can go and look between all the different charts. So the next step, he says, the plan of attainment. Success can be no greater than a plan is sound, therefore enlist help in building plan. So it's very key. If you have the definite major purpose, then you need to make sure you have a plan of attainment. And then the next step is the mastermind alliances. Choosing your mastermind so as to find people with experience and knowledge needed in carrying out your plan. That is big. And, you know, it's funny because I look back at my life and just where I'm at now, I almost have someone for every section. And so they'll be on another vision podcast later. So make sure you listen to that. But that is so important, to be able to be around experienced individuals and listen to experienced people who have the success or who've gotten to a point where you want to get to. And then after that, he said the following procedures are necessary in proceeding under organized thoughts. So we need to have organized thoughts, number one. Number two, we have to apply faith. Faith is very important in this journey of having organized thought. Organized endeavor, need to be organized in what we're doing. Creative vision. Number 5, self-discipline. Number 6, going the extra mile. And number 7, attractive personality. Now, he tells us to study carefully the 3 important steps one must take based off 1, definite of purpose, 2, a sound plan, 3, a mastermind alliances with experienced helper. Okay. So then the last chart is chart 3. Now, this one I love because it breaks it down a little bit more. So he tells us the chart of 10 factors which contribute to the mechanism of thought. Observe that the subconscious section of the mind have access to all departments of the mind, but is not under control of any. That's important. Let's read that again. Observation that the subconscious section of our mind have access to all departments of the mind, but is not under the control of any. So if you go back to some episodes before, I talked about the power of the subconscious mind. Whatever comes into our subconscious mind, we can't stop it. And I remember why you think about when you see something that you didn't want to see, well, that's stuck in your mind. And that is a form of your subconscious mind. You see something, it's there. You've captured it, whether if you've seen it for 1 second or even longer. And that's why certain people are very protective of what they see, what they listen to, because your subconscious mind is a very, very powerful mechanism of your mind. And he's going to explain that a little bit more here. So in this chart, he has a circle. And in that circle, he says the infinite intelligence. The infinite intelligence is the source of all power of thought, all facts, all knowledge available through the subconscious mind. Through the subconscious section of the mind only. Okay. And then the next square underneath that circle is the subconscious mind section of the mind. And he says the connecting link between the mind of man and infinite intelligence. Now, Napoleon Hill did go in to say a little bit that, infinite intelligence can be numerous of things, but how I relate to this is God within himself. So that's how I relate to that. You have to read the book and he'll explain more in detail what that means to you. But this is my vision board, so this is what it means to me. So below, he are showing all the departments of the mind with the 3 sources of thought, and at the bottom of the chart. So the first one is the faculty of willpower, which is the boss of your mind. We talk about willpower and you willing yourself to do something. That's you being the boss of your mind, right? So that's one of the first things you have to make sure you control. The faculties of reason, matter of all opinion and judgments. And then next, the faculty of emotions. This is the seat of most actions of the mind. And I was listening to the book, he said these are that and the faculty of willpower you must control first. Because controlling those 2 will be the outcome. You will determine the outcome of your mind and how much you own of it because of how you exercise the faculty of your willpower and the faculty of your emotions. And let's face it, I know for a fact for myself is that I'm a high emotion person. So understanding that and seeing how that can rule over my faculty of willpower, I have to be careful because my emotions can be very real, but that don't mean that I need to listen to them and I need to give in to them. So this is something that's a great reminder for me and seeing this order and seeing what all the other things that plays into me and my mind so that I can be aware of the things that's going to try to stir me to the wrong direction. And then after the faculty of emotions, he have the faculty of imagination, the builder of all plans. When we dream, when we be able to see the things that we want, we have to realize that those things are helped by the faculty of willpower, the faculty of reason, which is master of our opinion and judgments, of our emotions, and then our imagination. So me and you have to understand that it's things that goes into our minds and it's emotions, it's opinions and judgments that we make of the world. And it's the things that we will upon ourselves that allow us to imagine things in a certain way. And then the faculty of consciousness, which is your moral guide of the mind. So I love that section because it really breaks down the important faculties that you need to be aware of and understand that these sections of your mind is so critical to understand, but also understand how they work off each other. And then underneath there, he talked about the 3 sources of thought, which the 3 sources of thought which require the greatest amount of self-discipline are shown below. So the intuition, which is the 6th sense or the intuitive knowledge. One of the ways I found out what the 6th sense is when you're studying Napoleon Hill, it is your ability to, as Grant Cardone said, your ability to predict. When you are able to get in certain situations and you can be able to see certain things that other people can't see, is because you're able to predict. And I've seen that has happened from you mastering something to the point where you can now predict what will happen. And so I would think about that example with Grant Cardone when he said your ability to predict it, because if I'm in an environment or if I'm in a certain situation and I've seen this happen before, it's just like police, right? If they know they're going to be confronted with someone with a gun that's threatening to kill themselves or kill someone else, they have to study that to the T so they can understand how to handle it. And it gets to the point where certain people are so good at it, they can be able to predict how to handle that outcome. Okay. Probably not the best example, but that is an example. And next is the 5 senses. The 5 senses, those are sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch. These become reliable only through strict self-discipline. So I want you to really understand what he's saying here is that we have to discipline ourselves when it comes to our sight, our sound, our taste, our smell, and our touch. It's because we operate off of those senses. But we have to understand that what we see and what we sound in this case, taste, smell, and touch, it is only up to us to understand what is the best way to interpret all those senses. And that's why he said that these becoming reliable only through strict self-discipline. So you can't depend on it if you never have disciplined yourself to understand if I see something, what am I actually seeing? Am I seeing just the surface level or am I seeing it deeper for what it is? I think about that and I say, if my wife points something out, am I just seeing the surface level of it or am I seeing the depth in what she's seeing and she wants me to understand? And I have to discipline myself because the reality is that most of us as husbands, we see very surface level things. And our wives have this intuitive, God-given gift that can see deeper. And we can have it too sometimes. Sometimes they just have it much better than us and it snaps much better. But that seeing, you can see something deeper or more to it by disciplining yourself. And it takes effort, sound, taste, smell, and touch. Think about it. What do you hear? You can listen to music and you can hear so many different things. And it can connect you and it can allow you to tap into some emotion sometimes that is good for you and that allow you to get into the right motion and allow you to want to wake up, make you want to go work out, make you want to go do what you need to do when you don't feel like doing it. Okay. And so those are very important. And then he says memory is the storehouse of all thought and sense impression. Feeling is the filing cabinet of your brain. And he pointed out a couple other things when it came to the memory that is just not coming to mind right now, but I know is when you are operating off this third chart and you're thinking about your subconscious mind and you're thinking about, okay, this is a connection link between the mind of man and the infinite intelligence. And I'm looking at my faculty of the willpower, faculty of reason, faculty of emotions, of imagination, and in my consciousness. And when I can control those and I'm aware of that, well, I have good memories of those. Like I've practiced this in a sense, but not in this order. And I have good memories that say you should do that more and you should do it more intensively. So that's why I put this on my vision board. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you understand the importance of being very structured in how you think and your mental process. Is because as simple as that was, it's very deep and it's powerful. And it's very deep and powerful for me. And I'm glad that you maybe just have spent some time to listen through and hear me out when I explain all that. So maybe next time you can catch me and I'll be going through my next vision board. But I thank you for listening. And make sure you get a chance to share this with one person that you just say, hey, I think we should do a vision board and do it before the New Year's and do it after the New Year's. Because one thing I don't like about the New Year's is that everybody is doing it. Do something now that's going to stand for who you want to become, but also do it when it's not popular. Nobody's talking about vision board right now. Everybody worried about COVID. Everybody's thinking about Thanksgiving and then Christmas. There's nothing wrong with that. But you need to start thinking about how can you narrow down your focus and start doing the thing that you need to do besides focusing on what everybody else is doing. Okay. So remember, your job is to continue to take the information that I presented to you and ask yourself a question that's going to challenge you, that's going to pull the potential out of you. I think we all know that question. What's your self-talk? Thank you for listening.